Hello and good evening, and welcome to Varsity Maine Live, presented by Central Maine Power. For the Portland Press Herald, I am Travis Lazarzik. Tonight, I am joined by two of my colleagues. First, from the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel, the Belfast Bulldog, Dave Dyer, and my colleague from the Portland Press Herald, who doesn't have a cool wrestling nickname, Drew Bonifant. Our guest also doesn't have a cool wrestling nickname, but she does have a very good girls soccer team. It's the defending Class A state champions. They'll have a tough semifinal game on Saturday afternoon at Gorham. Please welcome Wyndham head soccer coach Deb LaBelle. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Your team has won 10 straight games, including a 6-2 win over Thornton Academy the other day in the first round of the playoffs. What's kind of clicking for you guys now as you got deeper into the season and hitting the toughest stretch of this season?
I feel like we've really come together as a group. We lost some key seniors last year. At the beginning, we really had to kind of reset our defense. And I would say the first 4 or 5 games, we were still figuring it out. We had a couple injuries, illness. So we had a little rough stretch there. But then because of those injuries, it allowed us to play, some kids we never thought would be there. And a couple of them are young and they've just really stepped up and they've done a great job. So injuries led to good things eventually.
Sure.
You're the defending champions, which would, normally when the postseason arrives would mean that all the eyes are on you. But you go in as a 3rd seed behind undefeated Scarborough, undefeated Gorham. Is there kind of a benefit to that, being able to be under the radar, so to speak, with that situation?
I do. I feel like there's a little less pressure on us. I've said to my kids, we're supposed to lose on Saturday. In their minds, I don't think that they want to lose. I don't think they're prepared to. We've really been prepping that, we've been there. We know how to get it done. So I do feel like this year there's a lot less pressure on us. It's really hard to go undefeated, and Scarborough and Gorham have done, a great job of maintaining that, but one of them is going to have to lose eventually to get to that state title. So yeah, we enjoy not having the target on our back for every game.
Deb, you had mentioned this year's team, even though you're the defending state champions, this year's team's a little different, but obviously it's still a successful season for you guys to this point. How much of a credit has that been to your veteran leadership on this team? As you mentioned, there's some young players getting that acclimated. Obviously, that's been rather successful. How much of a credit has that been kind of the veteran players of your team to be able to get those players acclimated and get everybody together to be successful in the field?
I have some seniors that have been with me since their freshman year, Abby Thornton and Elizabeth Talbot. They've been starting. Since their freshman year at center mid, which is pretty unique to have freshmen in that role. And they are just so consistent, solid. They play so well together. And they've really taken some of these underclassmen under their wings because they've realized what great, talented players. Elizabeth has a younger sister who's a sophomore. She plays, left mid for us, and she just fit right in seamlessly. Stella Jarvis, who's another back, is another sophomore who has had a really successful season on defense. And I think that the upperclassmen really respect them and realize how talented they are. You might look at our crew and not really realize, who's in what grade. I think Abby does stand out as a senior. She's been a leader. She leads quietly, but she gets it done on the field. And she's brought a lot of respect from her teammates. If she's going to work hard, they're going to work hard with her. I almost feel like they don't want to let the seniors down.
Coach, when we had you on last year, we kind of talked about the state of girls soccer in Maine. We're 2 years removed from that lost season of 2020 where some teams just didn't get a chance to play. How do you kind of assess the talent level now? From where I'm watching as an outsider, it looks just as strong, if not stronger than ever.
Yeah, I do feel like there's still a lot of talent out there. I would say I'm a little bummed that some of the programs, Wyndham included, we only had 2 teams this season. Typically, years past, we've had 3. There are certain schools that they're struggling to just have it JV and varsity. So I do think that the 2 years of COVID, some kids have decided to work. And then some kids, they enjoy the money and unfortunately some kids have decided as a sophomore, if they don't make varsity, they've decided they don't want to play, which is a bummer. So I'm really hoping that trend will go away. And we can get some numbers back in a bunch of different programs. Scarborough, kudos to him. He still has, I feel like, 80 players playing, which is wonderful. And we'd love to see some, the Gorhams, the Wyndhams going back to three teams next year. So hopefully we can get the numbers back up.
Coach, the people who follow soccer, especially in the SMA, know everything about Abby Thornton's game and everything. But for people who might not be as familiar with your team, with the soccer scene in the state, describe what makes Abby such a special player. Is it just playmaking ability? Is it scoring? Is it scoring touch? Kind of how would you encapsulate her as a player?
Abby's special. She's a really talented soccer individual. She's a playmaker. She, as a midfielder, she's leading our team in goals. We lost a senior last year, Sarah Talent, who was she's a basketball player, but she had, Abby actually beat her out in scoring last year by one goal. But we've had to really fill in this big gap, and Abby has really stepped up. But I would also say, for people that don't know her, she's so unselfish. If you watch some of our games, she could have had many more goals, but if she saw a teammate open, she got them the ball. She's tough to defend. She's constantly moving. I would say she's a player that corner kicks, it's really hard to defend her. She just has a nose for the ball and can get her head on it. She's had multiple goals off corners on her head. Constantly moving too. She never stops moving. And I really feel like she brings out the best in her team. She makes her teammates better players by giving them passes that are really hard to make. She makes them look really good.
Deb, as you go through the playoffs, do you guys kind of maintain a one game at a time kind of focus, or as it's progressing, are you kind of looking at the field and like, okay, here's a team that we know, like, Scarborough is obviously, one that you watch out for, what you've done with them. But like, even in the North, possibly with like a Mount Blue or a Brunswick, how do you kind of go through that during the playoffs? Do you just kind of maintain one game at a time, or do you kind of, kind of quietly look at the rest of the field too and kind of like see how that's going, how that's playing out?
Practice time, it's definitely one game at a time. But I would say as a coaching staff, we're definitely looking to see what's going on in the North. Brunswick is continuing to do really well. In the, huge upset over there. Well, actually, it was Class B with the gray, but we're looking at all the classes. But because we all like soccer. But it does. And we knew last year when we played Brunswick in the States that they were going to be back. They were young. They're a really bigger physical team. So I would have been shocked to see them not finish in first place. But day to day, we definitely do take it, one game at a time. Just, you can't look past that first game because you might not get to the next one. So yeah, definitely just one game ahead, practice-wise anyway.
Great. Well, Coach, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Good luck on Saturday night against Gorham. And again, thanks for your time. Deb LaBelle from Wyndham High School.
Thanks.
Okay. We will move on to Athletes of the Week. We'll start with Dom Napolitano from Coney football. After completing 11 of 22 passes for 159 yards and a touchdown, the Coney quarterback switched to wide receiver with his team down 28-20 with 2 minutes to play. He caught a 70-yard touchdown and 2-point conversion from Davin Flynn to tie the game. Then Napolitano scored the winning points on a 10-yard run in overtime. Dave, what have you seen out of this young man that makes him such a versatile football player to just flip-flop positions like that in the middle of a game and do well at both?
He's just a natural athlete. The guy is a Swiss Army knife. Basically anything that BL Lippert needs from him, maybe short of kicking, he can do. I've seen Dom, as a quarterback, he's done well both as a runner and as a passer. He's certainly done a lot in the run game this year, which is a little different when you look at a BL Lippert type offense that would normally at least in years past throw the ball a little bit more. He's definitely been quite the run weapon for them. But on defense, he's been a ball hawking safety all season. I would argue that's probably his strongest position. Every game that I've covered with Coney, he has at least one interception or a fumble recovery that he takes back for a touchdown. I won't lie. I wasn't really surprised when I ended up reading that he was used as a receiver and, Davin Flynn came in and, threw him a touchdown pass. I'm like, yeah, no, that fits right in line with what he does. And I mean, BL Lippert would tell you the same thing too. He's just a natural athlete and a selfless teammate who will do anything that's asked of him. And just another example of that the other night.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Peyton Bell from Edward Little Girls Cross Country. Bell won the Class A North title with a time of 20 minutes, 0.65 seconds on Saturday in Belfast. Cooper Spencer, Oak Hill Boys Soccer. He scored 2 goals in the Raiders' 4-3 win over Winthrop in a Class C South playoff game on Friday. Liz Talbot from Wyndham Girls Soccer. She scored a pair of goals and had an assist in the Eagles' 6-2 Class A South quarterfinal win over Thornton Academy on Tuesday. Shay Farrell, Mount Ararat football. The Eagles senior rushed for 4 touchdowns, including runs of 37 and 80 yards in an 8-man large South showdown with Yarmouth. Both teams are now 7-1 after Mount Ararat's 38-14 win. Carrie Drake, York Girls Cross Country. The junior won the Class B South Girls Cross Country race in a time of 18 minutes, 57 seconds at Twin Brook Recreation Area in Cumberland. She was the only girl from any class to break 19 minutes on the hilly 5-kilometer course. Noah Carpenter from Levitt football. The Hornets junior quarterback did it all in just 1 quarter of a 44-6 win against Freiburg. In the first quarter, he threw a touchdown pass, rushed for 2 more, kicked an extra point, ran in a 2-point conversion, and threw a 2-point conversion. Layla Conway, Skowhegan Field Hockey. She scored a hat trick to guide the Riverhawks to a 6-0 victory over Camden Hills in the Class A North quarterfinals. James Cognata, Winthrop Boys Cross Country. He won the individual Class C South title, running an 18:02, and led the Ramblers to the regional team championship in Cumberland on Saturday. Lily Stewart, Trape Academy Girls Soccer. She made 13 saves to help the Rangers upset top-seeded and previously undefeated Halldale 1-0 in the Class C South Girls Soccer quarterfinals. Halldale entered the game averaging just over 7 goals per game. Wyatt Chadwick from Gardner football. Chadwick threw for 197 yards and rushed for 123 in a 43-22 win over Mount Blue. Lily Cabin, Marana Cook Girls Soccer. She scored 3 goals in an 8-0 win over Mountain Valley in a Class C South quarterfinal. Eli Soren from Oxford Hills football. The senior quarterback completed 18 of 28 passes for 224 yards and 4 touchdowns in a win over New Hampshire's Portsmouth Oyster River on Friday. He also kicked 5 extra points. And finally, Brooke Farquhar from Gorham Field Hockey. She scored in overtime to give 7th-ranked Gorham an upset 2-1 victory over number 2 Biddeford in the Class A South quarterfinals. Drew, tell us a little about Brooke and Gorham, and it just kind of shows the depth in Class A South field hockey. It's not just Gorham and a bunch of teams.
That's exactly right. There's a lot of parity in that region, and we're starting to see it now that the playoffs have started. Gorham beating number 2 Biddeford, like you mentioned, and then earlier today we had number 6 Wyndham beating number 3 Scarborough 3-2. So a 6 seed in Wyndham or a 7 seed in Gorham will be going to the regional final, which is pretty cool. But talking about this Gorham team, Brooke Farquhar has really emerged as a weapon on offense for them, and they already had some weapons coming into this year. This was a team to watch. With Hannah Bickford there, with Ellie Sostolo, and then we saw Annabelle Collier has emerged as a really good freshman player for this team. She's played some defense, she's played some midfield too, so she can be a defensive and an offensive difference maker. This is a team with talent, and it's probably a team that kind of with talent that belied that 7th seed going in as Biddeford found out, and so that parity is really standing out. Wyndham is starting to come along with players like Hannah Hensler and Ella Wilcox there, and I got to give. I know we started talking about Gorham, but I got to give Wyndham coach Corey DiDonato credit. They started 0-3 this season. She was saying, "We're not worried. There's plenty of season left. We've got some games that we know we can win coming up. We're going to be fine," and they are.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. And I just misspoke when I meant to say Cheverus and a bunch of other teams when I threw it to you. But that's a good segue into the VarsityMaine.com polls. You can find these on VarsityMaine.com. They're voted on by our sports writers from around the state. And let's start with that field hockey, where number 1 is Cheverus again with all 6 first-place votes and 60 points. Number 2, Skowhegan with 54 points. Number 3, Scarborough with 46 points. Number 4, Lawrence with 40 points. And number 5, Oxford Hills at 32 points. Drew, I want to ask you about a team just outside that top 5, York's number 6. You saw them today. They certainly look like the dominant team in Class B South.
They looked very good today. They beat Morse 5-0, and yeah, it's a 1/9. It's a game that York should have been able to have a decently easy time with. But this is a team that just their aggressiveness on offense really jumps out. Their transition game is really, really good. They get the ball in midfield, and they're on the attack right away. It's very hard to kind of get possession and maintain possession against them because when you're playing them, the ball ends up in your end and just in a heartbeat. And I imagine and they have a really, really top line scorer in Abby Dixon. They have a great midfielder in Abigail Armlin. And then they have really good surrounding players like Nia Avery. Reese Walenta had a really good game today. Hadley Kuko, same thing. For teams in Class B that are going to be playing, and this is a motivated team because they were the 1 seed last year, lost the regional semifinals to Levitt. So they're eager to kind of do this year what probably people were expecting them to do last year. If you're a Class B South team and you're facing York, I wonder if the approach is to just do everything you can to kind of stop that, to kind of defend that attack that I was talking about, because they were buzzing around the Morse cage all day today. I wonder if the plan against them is to defend like that, or to kind of the line from Miracle. You don't defend them, you attack them and kind of go after them. It's going to be interesting to see what teams' game plans are to try to take them down.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Moving on to football, number 1, still Oxford Hills with all 8 first-place votes and 80 points. Number 2, Thornton Academy with 70 points. Number 3, Levitt with 66 points. Number 4, Coney this week with 41 points. We have a tie at 5th place with Cape Elizabeth and Portland, both with 39 points. Dave, Coney jumped over Skowhegan right at the end of the season there for the number 1 spot in Class B North. Skowhegan with a couple tough losses at the end of the season. Is Coney the favorite up there now, or is it still Skowhegan who shut out and handled Coney pretty easily earlier in the season?
I think despite the poll, I think Skowhegan is still the favorite as of right now. I mean, they have, even with the losses that they've had at the end of the season, they still have arguably the best defense in the conference right now. They have been strong all season. They've beaten the teams that they've been expected to beat, and then obviously they, a couple of tough ones against, a Thornton Academy, Class A school, have come along the way. But no, I think Skowhegan is still the favorite. Coney, obviously, that's not anything against Coney with that. They've had a strong season, and Coney's defense, to me, has been its strength all season. I know that's a team. When you talk about Coney, you talk about their offense a lot. And the offensive success that they've had. Their defense has been strong all season at all 3 levels. Jaden Geyer has been an excellent, and Johnny Letchery as well on the defensive line has been great. Caden Schließ Hoyman which I always have to work on every week. Has been great at linebacker when he's healthy, and then Napolitano at safety again has been one of the best safeties in the state all season. So I think all roads, as far as the regional final right now, lead to those two colliding. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll end up being a low-scoring game, and certainly looking forward to that eventual clash, at least in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Boys soccer is the tightest poll we have. Number one is Edward Little with 4 first-place votes and 66 points. Number 2, Cape Elizabeth picking up a pair of first-place votes and 61 points. Scarborough with a first-place vote and 60 points. Then we have a tie at 4th with Deering and Mount Ararat with 44 points. I imagine some of this is going to start shaking out when we start having some semifinal games over the next few days. Finally, we get to the girls soccer poll. Number 1, Scarborough with 6 first-place votes and 69 points. Number 2 is Gorham picking up that other first-place vote and 62 points. Number 3, Cape Elizabeth, undefeated in Class B South at 55 points. And number 4, Brunswick at 46 points. And then Wyndham at number 5 with 45 points. Really looking forward to seeing what happens with this Wyndham-Gorham game on Saturday night, guys. Like we said, those 3 teams, not much separates them in Class A South. And I think any of the 3 could come out of that region. And then have a tough game against a Brunswick or Mount Blue or Mount Ararat, somebody from the north.
And Camden Hill's lurking there too.
Camden Hills is lurking there as well. Yeah, that's I think Class A is a total toss-up at this point. Yeah. We have some state championship to decide this weekend, guys, starting with cross country at Twin Brook and Cumberland this weekend. We mentioned some of the contenders earlier in the Athletes of the Week. Dave, you've seen some of the North races, particularly last week. Who are some of the contenders from that region in all 3 classes?
Well, I can tell you that everybody showed up, or everybody who did show up to Belfast to watch the North regionals were there to see Ruth White from Oregon. She is turning into rock star status up there with her. She still owns the course record up there, but it's been unreal to kind of watch all season how she wins races, still has a huge amount of energy, and then goes and cheers on other racers because that's who she is, and the type of personality that she carries. I know Hamden Academy on the boys side for A has been strong all season. They continue to be. And then in B, MDI has done quite well team-wise. Mount Blue girls in A has been standout as well. So there are multiple teams in it, but in the North right now, like the story has been last week and all season has been Ruth White. Everybody shows up to watch Ruth White run and make comparisons to previous successful runners like Abby Leonardi. I've even heard a couple of Joan Benoit Samuelson comparisons here and there, so it's been pretty wild.
Breaks on comparing her to an Olympian.
I know. Hey, believe me, you're preaching to the choir here, but it's been tossed out there a time or two.
Leonardi or Bethany Brown from Waterville might be more apt comparisons.
Yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me a little bit of when Lissandro Barry Gaviria was running for Mount Ararat, and he was just, it was like, it was his every race that he was running in, especially his junior and senior years, was basically a showcase for him. It's when you get runners who are a cut above and maybe even several cuts above, it could be something to see.
Sure. And she's still a junior, so she still has a whole other year to go after this too. So,
wow. Okay, and then we have volleyball state championships this weekend. On Saturday night at Mount Desert Island High School, we have the Class C. It's a battle of some Down East schools, Washington Academy versus Narraguegas. Washington's defending state champ. Tomorrow night, Friday, at University of Southern Maine, we have Class A, Biddeford versus Gorham. Biddeford was the runner-up last year. So that's a 1 versus 3 battle. And then in Class B, following that, we have Yarmouth versus Gardner. Yarmouth's defending state champs. Gardner making their first appearance in the state match. They have not been a program for very long. Dave, I think you've had a chance to see them a couple times this season. What can you tell us about the Tigers volleyball team? They've
been strong all season. They've dropped 5 sets the entire year. They've had 12 sweeps. 3-0 sweeps. They have 4 players who've been selected as KVAC first teamers, including the co-player of the year and Lizzie Gruber. And I know everybody, if the name sounds familiar, I know people have heard of her basketball exploits, but she is just as strong of a volleyball player as she is a basketball player. And obviously with her height, she's about 6'4", tremendous advantage at the net for them. But they've just worked together so well. Tiffany Ouellette's done a great job leading that squad all season. There's really not a lot of flaws. The real question coming into this game, and as it has been for years, is does a team from the North have what it takes and be to pull off state championship? So we'll see. It's definitely the strongest team from the North, hands down, as far as Gardner goes. But we'll see how the North finally stands against the South when that matchup goes down.
Okay, thank you, Dave. We got football playoffs starting this weekend, also with classes B and C. 8-man started last week in the small schools division. 8-man large schools going on now. So plenty of stuff going on statewide as far as high school sports goes. We remind you to check it all out at varsitymaine.com. Be sure to come back next week when we have some state championship games to talk about, as well as some more football playoffs. For Deb, for Dave, for Drew, I'm Travis. Thanks for joining us this week on Varsity Maine Live.